Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the road to rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, up level and take it to the next level in helping others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, you can hear this show anywhere you get your podcasts. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, we invite you to leave a rate and review. Otherwise, let us know how we're doing by shooting us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com, and we'll even give you a shout out. We're always truly grateful for your listenership. Okay, my special guest is an author, a healer, elite success coach, spiritual teacher, and the founder of Awakening Dynamics. He's helped thousands of clients and students worldwide overcome their struggles with HIV, cancer, childhood abuse, poverty, depression, and a lot more. Let's welcome Brent Phillips to the show. Brent, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. This is great.
Oh, thank you. We're excited to have you. So, Brent, if we can just start early on, you had a successful career as an MIT-trained engineer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you just give us a glimpse into that journey and what happened in that journey that led you to what you're doing today?
You know, it's funny that sometimes I wake up thinking my life is some kind of joke because I never thought I'd be doing this, right? Like, where are the cameras? This has got to be some kind of trick. Because I never thought I'd do anything like this. Because growing up, I was pretty much just your typical nerd.
Yeah.
And I love Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and computer games and all the nerdy kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in college, I ended up at MIT, which was amazing because MIT had the internet years before most of the world. Long time.
Oh, wow.
And so I fell in love with the whole online world. And when I was in graduate school, my group was part of what became the World Wide Web Consortium.
Mm-hmm.
So I helped to develop some of the foundational software that the whole internet runs on. And when the internet boom hit, I figured this is my gold rush, right? So long story short, I left MIT and with the goal of taking all this networking expertise I had and making a ton of money in tech. And it's funny that my very first website that I ever built, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right after Brent's homepage.
Yeah.
The first actual full website I ever built was for the launch of the Sony PlayStation in the summer of
Amazing.
1995. Yep.
Wow.
And so after a year, I had 15 people working for me. We had done websites for Disneyland, Nissan Motors, several divisions of Sony.
Mm-hmm.
We had, 6 different Fortune 500 clients, and we were kicking ass.
Yeah.
And we even started a second company to make online games because I had developed some real-time peer-to-peer networking systems that were perfect to create a whole new kind of game that had never existed before. Today we call them MOGs, or massively multiplayer online games, but it was just a concept back in the 90s. But I built the very first one that ever existed.
Wow.
And it was amazing. It was called Underlight, came out in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was, because I was working so hard, I was the primary developer and only technical manager at 2 startups. So I was working a crazy amount. And long story short, after a couple of years of 100-hour work weeks, my body started to break down.
Yeah.
I started to have a lot of pain. I started seeing doctors, going to physical therapy. And my work weeks went from 100 hours to 80 to 60 to 40 to about 20 by the time the game released.
Oh, my.
I was in so much pain, I could barely drive to work. I had to move in with my parents because some days I needed help, like getting dressed and even cutting my food. So it was devastating chronic pain. And right before the game released, I got an appointment to see the head doctor at the Curlin Job Physical Therapy Clinic. It's one of the top clinics in the world. And I was so excited because I'd been in, at that point, 3 years of therapy, and nothing was helping me. I was actually getting worse, not better.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, well, hey, this guy will have the answer, right? And instead, a long story short, he just looked at my file and the notes, and he said, well, I'm sorry. You're going to have to find somewhere else because we can't afford to see you anymore. He declared me what they call permanent and stationary and recommended me for lifetime disability at 27 years old.
Come on. 27?
Basically said, there's no chance you can recover. You'll always be in so much pain that there's no chance you'll ever go back to work. Don't even think about it. And he said, I'm going to do you a favor and recommend you for long-term disability. And yeah, I was 27 years old, and I was basically sent home to die with chronic pain. And the last thing he said before I left his office, I'll never forget. It's kind of burned into my subconscious PTSD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is, son, do you got someone that can take care of you until you die?
Oh, are you serious?
Yep. He basically sent me home to die at 27. And I was crushed when I told my best friend and business partner.
Yeah.
I figured he'd be all, hey, and there, Brent, we'll get this together, right?
Yeah.
Well, turned out he had been secretly dating the woman that I was in love with.
Oh, my.
And so he used this as an excuse to fire me from the companies I had founded, that I had literally crippled myself to build up and make successful.
Right.
He sold the website company for millions of dollars behind my back. And I got left basically with chronic pain, living with my parents, surviving on disability. And I had not only a terrible heartbreak, but I also lost my best friend. So that started 5 years of drugs and drinking and suicidal thinking.
Sure.
But what pulled me out of that was alternative medicine. So long story short, I got into alternative medicine. I ran up over $100,000 on my credit card, going to acupuncture and herbs and cleanses and meditation and magnets. I could go on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But same thing with the physical therapy. I didn't get better. I just got worse. And it all came to a head in 2003. I had a surgery, an experimental surgery, and I woke up and my arm was paralyzed. Couldn't move my right arm.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that was kind of the rock bottom.
Yeah.
And months of treatments, trying to get my arm moving. It was not long after that, my first wife left me. So that was this whole, this whole nother explosion of my life.
Yeah.
And that's when I met this crazy healer lady named Terry. And she explained to me how we have a lot of power in the subconscious mind, and we got all these blocks and traumas. And she had developed this process of identifying and working through subconscious traumas for healing. And I'm like, okay. So I was desperate. So I had a session, right? I'm like, I tried crazier things, right?
Yeah.
I had done Reiki healing and pranic healing and yoga and Pilates, all this kind of wellness stuff, right? But nothing helped me at all. And so I went to see Terry, and she showed me how to check the subconscious and did, ask me a lot of questions about my childhood and my career and, the best friend and all the drama.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, but I'm like, what does that have to do with my arm, right? So we do this for about an hour, and she goes, okay, Brent, let's heal your arm now. And I thought she was joking. I'm like, sure, lady, right?
Yeah.
You and what army, right? And I remember she closed her eyes and went into a trance. And about a minute later, there was this loud crack in my elbow. It was, like the cracks we all get in our joints as we age, but like times 100.
Wow.
It would be like, someone set off a firecracker behind you. It was like, boom. It was like, whoa, right? Boom. It was a really loud crack. And she heard it. And she was like, hey, dear, try the arm. And I could move my arm. And I was like, oh, my God. What I actually said was probably a little more R-rated, but I was shocked. I did not expect that. Because, again, up to this point, I had been, shall we say, spiritually curious.
Yeah.
But mostly I thought religion was just a bunch of nonsense. I had been recruited by a cult in college. I had a friend got drawn into Scientology. So I was a little gun shy about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But this was proof to me there's a lot more to this world than what we see.
It truly is, Brent. And you know what? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I walked in a hardcore skeptic and an agnostic and a software engineer and a scientist to my core. And I walked out as most of those things, but now I had an open mind because I had this experience that I knew was real, that had no logical explanation, that I could not move my arm for 5 months. and I see this crazy healer lady, and she closes her eyes, my elbow goes pop. And so I dedicated myself to figuring it out. I'm like, there has to be a basis of this in science and math, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is physics and math.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some things are so advanced we haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
And it was interesting that when I started this journey, I figured, well, I had like straight A's in the most difficult major at MIT. This can't be hard to learn healing. It was really hard for me, right? It was hilarious. I was so bad. I was so in my head, right? So I figured 3 to 6 months, I'll figure out healing. Good news is I figured it out, but it took about 10, 12 years.
10 or 12 years. That's a big difference, right? That's
about
a jump.
10 years later, I think I figured it out. I don't have all the answers, but I think I have a lot more than most people. And that's why I'm here, to let people know that I see healing, transformation, meditation, spiritual ascension. This is a technology. This is something that can be understood, that has laws and principles.
Right.
And we can learn to work with it and use it. That we have this great gift of consciousness.
Yes.
That's so powerful, right? It would be like if you gave a caveman a car, but no key and no gas. You have this incredible vehicle that can do so many things that's just sitting there, right? What would the caveman do with it? He'd probably sit in the car when it rained.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sit in the car.
That'd probably be it.
Rains. Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's not zero usefulness, but there's so much more it can do. And so the power of the mind, the subconscious, learning how to tap into the true self, there's so much we can do there. And I'm an engineer, so a lot of people don't really get it. There is a subtle difference between scientists and engineers. Scientists go discover the laws of the universe. Engineers take what scientists figured out and build things out of it.
Right.
So that's kind of what I've done is, I didn't invent a lot of these spiritual teachings and things. No, I found a few on my own. Most of this I learned from the masters, but I've taken it and created into a system that's useful you can build things with.
And it sounds like there's a significant incorporation of science principles
absolutely
and methodologies in what you have developed, right? In your techniques.
In fact, everything I've developed has been done through the scientific method.
Amazing. And I want to touch on that here in a minute, Brent. If I can first ask, and I think you answered the question mostly, was there some sort of jadedness that you may have had or may have developed upon you over the years? I mean, not just from being of the scientific background and knowing scientific laws and principles and philosophies. Well, not philosophies, but scientific facts.
Sure.
And so what happened to you with your arm may be kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive to what you've learned up to this point.
It was certainly extremely humbling.
Yeah.
Because when I was a young man, I really thought I had the answers. My whole life, I had heard from people, "Oh, you're so brilliant. You're going to change the world. You're so gifted. You're going to do all this stuff," right? Then MIT made it worse. And I really thought I had it figured out. Yeah. And I remember it wasn't my first session with Terry. It was like the second or third. And remember, at this time, when I started on the spiritual path, my life was a train wreck.
Yeah.
Not only was my arm paralyzed, I had terrible chronic pain. I hadn't worked in years. Right. I was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
I was depressed, enormous social anxiety. I had undiagnosed Lyme disease. I had undiagnosed chemical poisoning, autism, my whole laundry list of nightmares, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And it was very humbling because I remember Terry had said, "Hey, Brent, why do you believe that?" And at the time I was like, well, dang it, Terry, I don't have beliefs. I just know what's true.
Right.
That's why my life was such a nightmare. It's really that simple.
Amazing. And
I thought I knew so much. I was so smart, right? I had all the answers. And then I created this nightmare. And I had to step back and go, okay, maybe a few of the things I thought I knew, maybe I'm wrong about this. And it's interesting that led me almost 10 years to the moment of awakening.
Yeah.
Which is another thing where I always assumed I knew what I was.
Right.
Everyone does, right?
Yep.
And it was like a punch in the gut. It was very humbling. And I think it is true that had I not been so humbled, had I not been through such a nightmare, I'm not sure it would have cracked through this thick skull.
I got you.
I was so invested in that worldview of science, engineering, skepticism, rationalism, that it really took something that totally upended my life to get me to be willing to embrace that, hey, maybe I'm wrong about this. And what I'll offer to everyone is we all live in prisons constructed out of what we think we know.
Right.
That's the number one thing holding you back in your life. It is
Mhm.
all these things you think you know. We all think we're so smart. We're so clever.
Yeah.
And we're really not. Nothing personal. Even the smartest among us is kind of a dumbass.
Yeah. No, none, we don't have it all figured out, and none of us are perfect. But man, Brent, it sounds like you had a double whammy. I mean, not only, did you think you had it all figured out from everything you knew scientifically, but things that were beyond your control that happened
Yes.
around you.
Yep.
Okay. How do you learn to release from that anger, if any anger came about,
Yeah.
or
Anger,
jadedness? I
pain,
mean,
fear,
well,
cynicism.
yeah,
I mean,
your best
it's
friend, you lose your best friend, the woman you're in love with, and you get fired from the job that you crippled yourself to build. I mean,
yeah, it was interesting that
yeah,
I thought the hard part would be fixing the physical body.
yeah,
But what I've really found is over the long term, it's the emotional body
hmm
is where most of the healing is needed. That the biggest thing holding me back has really been different layers of post-traumatic stress
hmm
of all this stuff. Because, I may hold some world's record for body work. I mean, I've had so much pain for so long. I've
yeah.
had over 2,200 hours of body work done on me.
Oh
I mean,
wow,
thousands and thousands, right? That's like
that's a
2 or 3
lot.
times a week for decades.
Yes, yes,
And there's a reason that it didn't have much effect, and that's I was so damaged emotionally from what happened. And
right.
so,
The emotional part, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's
And that for a lot of people is the harder one to heal
yeah.
because it's difficult to understand. A lot of people think it's not real, right? You
hmm
can't put it under a microscope or
hmm
pull it up on a blood test. But really, that's what I learned from Terry and my other teachers was pretty simple. That if we wish to heal the body, first we must heal the mind.
Understood.
And that's what a lot of my energy healing is different approaches to help heal the mind. The
Yes.
body part is actually very simple. If we look at one of my intensive trainings, I'll spend roughly 15 and a half hours teaching you how to heal the mind and 30 minutes on the body.
I
Why?
see.
The body part's easy once you got the mind. And
Understood.
yep.
And that kind of supports when you first met Terry, all the things she was asking you about your background and upbringing and so
Yep.
forth, and you're thinking, okay, when are we going to get to my arm, and what does that have to do
Exactly.
with my arm?
Right.
Yeah. I kind of liken it to the Karate Kid.
Yes, absolutely. Why am
Yeah,
I? It was my wax on, wax off,
it
right?
was your wax on, wax off. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember thinking, I'm like, it's interesting. I don't have anything better to do today, right?
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
not here to talk about my feelings, right?
No,
I'm here
yeah,
because of an orthopedic issue, right? There's something
right.
wrong in my elbow.
Yeah.
And I thought you could fix it, right?
hmm hmm
And she did. It was interesting. She never touched me. There was no physical manipulation, right? It wasn't like she was doing, acupressure or
Right.
using substances or essential oils. Nope, it was all done with the mind.
Amazing.
She was sitting across the room from me the whole time.
Amazing. Can you imagine? And I'm sure you know now, based on the great work you do and your experience with Terry. But I'm trying to fathom the level of connection that one must have with the other to cure something like that without touching.
Yeah, it's what it comes down to is actually pretty simple in theory. We've
hmm
all heard a million times that we're all one, right?
Yeah.
Everybody energetically is connected to everybody else energetically.
hmm
It's kind of like the internet. You're on your computer on one part of the internet, I'm on mine on another.
Yeah.
But here we are sharing a screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very
And
true.
it's fascinating that when I started this over 20 years ago, that was back 2003,
hmm
that this happened. Very few healers did remote work. For the
hmm
most part, if you went to see a healer, you got a plane ticket and booked a hotel and you went into their office, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was one of the first to be doing remote work. Why? I had been online for a decade and a half at that point.
Right.
So it was a
Right.
very natural and easy fit for me. And the way Terry
Mhm.
explained it, it was pretty simple. We all share one big energy body. And with someone's permission, it's very easy to energetically connect to them. Again, very much like the internet.
Yeah.
With the right software, I could log into your computer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see what files you've downloaded, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what websites you like, and
Mhm.
or help you fix it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Our minds are no different, as are our bodies.
Gotcha.
So it's actually a pretty easy one to
Yeah.
learn. At least for me, the remote aspect was very easy
Mhm.
because I've been doing remote work for so long, right?
Yeah.
Most of the guys in the World Wide Web Consortium, I never met in person. The majority of them.
You haven't. You have not.
Nope.
No.
Nope, because they were all in Europe mostly, or other
Mhm.
universities.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was only in the group for 2 years. So
I see.
I met some of them, but most of them, we talked on the phone, and mostly we exchanged emails.
Gotcha.
So remote work seemed very natural to me. But Terry was also on the cutting edge there. That we learned how to do in-person healings, remote groups, even developed a technology I call the Formula for Miracles technology that
Yeah.
allows us to encode the healing into audio programs.
I
So
see.
we did a lot to really push the envelope of the technology.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. And
I
this was
didn't invent
decades
energy.
before
Yes.
it became commonplace.
Yes. Nowadays, everyone's a remote healer.
Right.
Everyone in the monkey knows how to do it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, it's not a big deal anymore. In fact,
Yeah.
I'd say the marketplace is oversaturated.
Yeah.
Especially during
Very
COVID,
much so.
everyone wanted to be either a healer or a life coach
Yes.
and work at home remotely, right?
Yes.
Thinking it was some easy way to print money.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
anyone that chooses this as an easy way to make money is just an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
It's a calling. It's a calling, not something you choose because you like the benefits or the salary, right?
No. I totally agree. I mean, and I'm not in that space, but this is from a humanitarian standpoint, in helping others who are in pain and who are struggling.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is for human compassion, not for cash.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you do this as a full-time business, this is the only way I've supported my family for 20 years now. Of course, money has to be exchanged.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like your plumber doesn't stay in business if no one pays him, right?
Right.
But yes,
You're not looking to retire,
I could have made I probably could have made
years.
at least 5 times more money, maybe 10 times had I gone back to tech.
Understood.
But it's not my path.
No.
I just
calling, like you said.
Some musicians are like this.
Mhm.
They just know they're meant to be a musician.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The typical story, their father wants you to go to law school or business or something. It's like, no, I want to play guitar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it was for me. I really didn't have a choice. The universe was like, Brent, this is what you're doing. And I was like, yes, sir. Right.
Yeah. Follow orders. That's right.
I've tried to do my own thing. I just end up flat on my face. And this is what they call surrender.
Yeah.
That you can fight it as long as you want, but once you've been called to your path, you'll do a lot better when you surrender to it.
Do you feel like there's been some degree of freedom when you surrendered, Brent?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that most of us think we want a lot of money because it will give us freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really dig down, why is it we all want money, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, it's freedom. Freedom to do what you want. Freedom to go where you want,
Mhm.
right? Freedom to be treated well. All these things. It's really freedom.
Yeah.
And what I found after a lot of work, I've made and lost a lot of money in my life. There's no freedom there. There's only in slavery to the ego.
Understood.
There's a nice temporary boost. It feels great the first time you make $1 million, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Go make all the money you like, right?
Right.
But it's kind of like falling in love. It doesn't last a lifetime.
No, it doesn't.
Right? You meet someone, you fall in love. That's great.
Mhm.
Just don't think you're going to feel that way in 20 years.
No, that honeymoon effect, right?
Exactly. The honeymoon effect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's what it is. So over the long run, what it comes down to is basically the money is just a vehicle, right? And when you're called to do this work, you do it, and somehow the money seems to work out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yes, I would say the freedom of surrendering is so much greater than the freedom that money brings.
Oh, that's if I could find a quote of this episode, of this conversation, it would be what you said right there.
Oh, thank you.
The freedom of surrendering.
is worth so much more than the freedom, is so much better than the freedom of money.
So much
And
better
it's
than the
funny
freedom.
that I call my system Awakening Dynamics because it's about awakening. It is very spiritual at the core,
Yes.
combined with the dynamics, which is the techniques, right? The healing, the clearing, intuition, right? The dynamic aspects, as opposed to the presence of
Yes.
being. So I want to
Yes.
combine both. And one thing that one of my teachers said that led me really deep into the awakening, the non-duality, is he had sent out an email. Because, like most people watching this, I'm on all these different email lists, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he had made a claim. He was doing a class in my area. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, if you were to offer me $1 billion in cash to lose everything I know and have experienced in regards to awakening, the non-dual perspective,
Yeah.
I would laugh at you and say no.
Wow. Really?
And I thought that was a come on, because I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
$1 million is one thing, but $1 billion,
A billion,
wow,
right? With a B.
right? I can imagine myself making $1 million pretty easily.
Sure.
$1 billion is difficult to imagine,
Yes.
right? But
yes.
yeah, I thought it was a come on,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it was clever. I'm like, this guy's clever. So I went to the class just to meet him.
Yeah.
But the content blew my mind. And it took me a while. My awakening took about 9 months, which is, pretty typical.
Yeah.
But when I finally got it, I remember I called him. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry, but I get it. You weren't kidding.
Yeah.
This really is more valuable than $1 billion in the bank.
Wow.
So it's funny that when I was young, I thought I'd go out and make a ton of money in tech and then maybe go play with spirituality.
Right. Right.
But instead, the opposite happened. All the money was taken from me. And it's like, okay, Brent, you're going to go down the spiritual rabbit hole before we give you any more money.
Isn't irony interesting?
It is. It's wild, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. It really is wild,
It's wild.
I'd like to know from, let's say, the client's perspective, okay,
Sure.
in the context of awakening dynamics and the science, and forgive me if this is an incorrectly used phrase, but I don't know, the science infused methods with technology and healing.
Mhm.
From a client's perspective, what does it look like or feel like, or what's discovered when they have a spiritual awakening?
Really, the awakening is subtle,
Mm-hmm.
in that there's a saying in the world of awakening that most students have to ask their teachers if they got it.
I see.
So it is a very subtle shift at first. So
Okay.
subtle that most people, my students, it's the same thing. They're like, Brent, am I getting this? And I'll ask them
Yeah.
some questions, this and that.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. They're like, really? At first, it's so subtle you can miss it.
I
But
see.
what happens is you will look back and go, gee,
Yeah.
it'd be like if you had back pain and you came to work with me.
Yeah.
We'd mostly work on spiritual, emotional stuff, right? I
Mhm,
might ask you a
mhm.
little bit about where did it hurt, when did it start, what did the doctor tell you, but
Yeah.
beyond that, I don't really care, right?
Yeah.
And what would likely happen is you would just go on with your life, and you probably wouldn't even notice at first that it was gone.
Amazing.
And then maybe a year later, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You're going through your closet. You're like, I haven't needed my belt for my back in a while. That's strange.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like that, but with your suffering, like, maybe
Mhm,
you've been in conflict with your parents a lot in your life. It's just,
mhm.
it's not like there's a big fireworks display, but a year or two
No.
later, you go back and go, wow, things
Yeah.
have been a lot smoother, right? They're not making me
Ah.
crazy like they used to.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not one of those things that one can maybe detect a change or improvement incrementally over time, but more so of just going about your life afterwards.
Yes,
And then
things will be different.
a week later, a month later,
Yeah.
6 months later, then it's
Yeah,
like,
not to say
something.
it's not that there are never any quantum jumps or
Sure.
experiences. They will happen,
Yeah.
but they're less common. Most
Understood.
of it is you look back and go, gee, you know what?
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll look at what's going on in my life and go, why am I not freaking out more than I am?
Right.
Right? Why am I not
Yeah.
totally miserable right now? That's odd.
Yeah.
And you'll actually think something's wrong with you at first.
Yeah.
The truth is there's something right with you. Everyone else is crazy. Everyone else is
Amazing.
living in the past, running all these stories and miss their traumas, living through them, etc.
Amazing.
When you start to achieve that freedom,
Yeah.
it's I would say it's like putting down a burden you didn't know you were carrying.
I see.
That
And
most
you
of us
don't
have
know
carried
how
this
much,
burden.
right? You don't know how
Yeah.
much lighter your
That's right.
your baggage could have been
That's right.
until
Yep.
you have this type of
Yes.
awakening. I see.
Exactly. It's similar to what a lot of people are eating foods they're allergic to.
Yeah.
And you avoid those for say 30 days. You go, oh my God, I feel
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
You never
Mhm.
noticed, you never thought you felt bad before, but it had always been that way.
Yeah.
And
Man.
we're just conditioned by our parents, our friends, our schools
Yeah.
to suffer and get into the head and get all these dysfunctional mythologies and live in an ass backwards way. And we
Right.
wonder why we're in pain and struggling with money and feeling alone by the time we're 50, right?
Wow.
It's like, it's not your fault. You've just been taught
No.
to live ass backwards, right?
Well, yeah, and again, irony is very mysterious, right?
Yeah.
Because as you're saying, there's a lot of things with societal norms or what society proclaims as this is right, this is wrong, this is normal, this is abnormal,
Mhm.
and we think we're in tune when we're, I don't know, complying with society.
Yeah, it was another awakening teacher. His name was Krishnamurti.
Yeah.
And he was well known in Southern California during the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
And one of his sayings was that it is no sign of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Another quote.
Yep. So if you imagine someone
Yes.
living in South Africa during apartheid,
Yeah.
they would think it's normal and appropriate that people are separate in the way they are, right?
Hmm.
And if someone with a different skin color uses your water fountain, you call the police, you have them arrested.
Yeah.
That seems normal, right?
Yeah.
For those of us that didn't grow up with that, it's like, are you insane? Why would you do that, right?
Right. That's right.
But yes, a lot of us, and what will happen is as you start to discover your true self, there's this incredible liberation
Mhm.
because most of the things we want and spend so much effort moving towards aren't really things we want. They're just brainwashing. Someone has implanted the idea in your head. Society, right. A lot of
Yeah.
it is advertisers, politicians,
Mhm.
schools, parents,
Mhm.
the media,
Mhm.
you name it, it's social media all over the place.
Yeah.
And so
But you have to
what will
quiet the
happen is
distractions, don't you?
you do. It is a challenge.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
for me, I used to think that I really wanted to make millions of dollars and buy some big fancy house in
Mhm.
in an expensive neighborhood.
Mhm.
That was what I grew up with, kind of the mark of great success.
Yeah.
And at some point I realized when I connected to the real Brent that's in there,
Mhm.
I'm like, that's not really something I want. That was just something I pieced together from other people's stories.
Amazing.
That I'm not sure it even like that because I've known very wealthy people that live in those homes,
Yeah.
and it would drive me nuts because there's always people in your space.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's cleaners, cooks, gardeners, technicians, right? The dog walker, the babysitter, the nanny.
Yeah.
That
No
would
one's on
drive
an
me
island.
nuts. That's
Right.
right. The bigger the house, the more of a retinue and staff and
Yeah.
a buzz with activity.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want that, right? I
Right.
don't even like it when my cleaning person's here. It's nothing personal, but I'm like,
No.
hurry up and finish, right?
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out. Yeah. And so the point is that
Uh-huh.
many of us don't until you've awakened to really the true self. You're
Mhm.
chasing and making all these sacrifices for things that won't even bring you what you think. They're not going to fit you, right?
Gotcha.
You've achieved somebody else's idea of success.
I see.
And the freedom that comes with finding the true self is the real success, the real you is usually much more achievable.
Mm.
So what I found, again, this is just one example from Brent's life. I love live music.
Mhm.
That really fulfills me. It speaks to my soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mine
I'd
as well.
way rather spend my money on that than on having another 8,000 square feet on my house.
Yeah.
Because that would just make me miserable and cost me money, right?
Mhm.
But live music is not that hard to find.
It's beautiful.
At least, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's going to be different for each person.
Right.
But
Right.
we find things that really fulfill us, and we usually find we're good at them, and they're pretty easy to create.
Now,
And we get into the movement and the more advanced work. A lot of it is just letting go of completely dropping the ego and all its BS.
Yeah.
Moving into the presence. And there is a surrender. It's a huge aspect of surrender. Because
Yeah.
your mind, your ego is going to kick and scream and fight the whole way. Mine did.
Yeah, I
For
bet it
sure.
did.
It
I
sure.
bet it did. And as a coach and a healer, I mean, I don't anticipate that you would give this in the beginning of connecting with a new client as a heads up uh, prior to going into the healing and the
No,
practices
no,
and so
not
forth.
not for the early part. That most
Yeah.
people, for most people, there's a process to get to that point.
Yes. Okay.
That the
Okay.
full process of awakening for most people,
Hmm.
6 to 18 months, depending on your background, your
Gotcha.
dedication, how urgent it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That for most people, the starting point is pretty simple. Let's clear some traumas out of your subconscious and watch you heal and watch your life get better.
So what are some of the?
That's kind of the entry point, but
I
it goes
see.
much deeper from there.
I see. Okay. Gotcha. So what are some of the examples of just some revelations or discoveries that your clients have told you they've learned about themselves through
Sure.
this experience?
Um, it's interesting that one of the things that happens is that they will say that you can't get rid of the cloud until you find the silver lining.
Yeah.
That one thing I hear a lot from people is they'll come to me with a huge problem,
Hmm.
often life-threatening. Maybe they have cancer.
Hmm.
Maybe their spouse just died, or they went bankrupt, or it's usually a pretty big kind of life issue, right? Or they have
Yeah.
chronic pain and the doctors can't help.
Yeah.
And what will happen is we will work through it, and almost always they will look back and go, "My gosh, this is one of the best things that ever happened to me."
Mm. Hmm.
And so I look at everything I went through in the 90s. I lost my career. I lost my best friend. I lost two multi-million dollar companies. I lost years of my life. I
Yeah.
lost my youth. I lost my 20s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I got, I think, was ultimately more valuable.
Hmm.
So there was a high price to pay. But I think had I had the success I wanted when I wanted it and the way I
Hmm.
wanted it, I would have turned into the world's biggest jerk. Because I thought I had
Yeah.
all the answers. I was full of myself. I was arrogant. I was condescending.
Yeah. You didn't
I
have that
was,
humbling moment at that time.
that's right. Exactly.
I
So a
see.
lot of people will look back, and I've heard that about people that survive cancer.
Yeah.
Most of those that survive it and really go cancer free,
Hmm.
the large majority look back and go, this is one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Hmm.
Because it forces them to wake up and pay attention to their life.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what I'm offering. You don't have to get cancer to do that. Right.
No. No.
You
You
don't have
don't.
to be in chronic pain. You
Nope.
don't have to go bankrupt. You
Nope.
don't have to get divorced or lose your best friend. I mean, you can. I've done all those things
Right.
and more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bankruptcy, cancer, divorce,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Chronic
Yeah.
pain. Yes,
Yeah.
check all the boxes.
Hmm.
The question is, when you're ready, how much is the universe going to have to kick you in the butt?
Exactly.
Right. And so
Yep.
what I want to offer is that you're going to get to where you need to be one way or another.
Hmm.
My offer is I want to show you some great technology that's going to make it easier.
Mm.
Right?
I got you.
You got to
Yeah.
go on a trip. Let's get you
Yep.
a nice cabin. Right?
Yeah.
Let's get you
Yeah.
some music to listen to. Let's get you a
Right.
good book. Let's get you
Right.
some video games.
Yeah. And let's make this happen.
Right. Let's make this happen, and let's make it
Yeah.
fun, and let's enjoy every moment of it,
Yeah.
because it's not going to last forever.
No, it's not. And as we go
That's right.
into tech and talking about tech, Brent, um, can you just give us a glimpse into the three generations of consciousness tech?
Absolutely, one of my favorite subjects. So, as an engineer, I see
Hmm.
all this self-improvement stuff. We can group it roughly into three generations of technology.
Okay.
That what I call first generation consciousness technology,
Hmm.
that's old school positive thinking, The Secret, Think and Grow Rich,
Yeah.
affirmations, mantras, vision boards, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, Worth doing, but for most people is not enough on its own to move the needle.
Hmm.
So I did all that stuff in the 90s, didn't do anything for me.
Okay.
I suppose it gave me something to do on a couple weekends, right?
Yeah.
But certainly didn't deliver any results. The second generation is where it gets interesting. That's what I learned from Terry. And the big jump is in the second generation, we start to work directly with the subconscious.
Okay.
And that's what Terry did with me. Directly
Mm.
into the subconscious, see what the body's holding,
Yeah.
identify it, clear it, change it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that starts to give us some real results. That's when the medical miracles really start to show up.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
this is people instantly healing from cancer, from chronic pain, from
Right.
diabetes, from you name it, lots of autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
and that look like true medical miracles. Is it 100%? No. If I had to throw numbers at it, anywhere from 10 to 80%, depending on the person and the issue, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some things like cat and dog allergies, I'm like 95% on.
Yeah.
But, but other things we're not. And the second gen is great. So that would be things like Psych K, emotion code, healing code, theta healing, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of different ways, NLP, hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting in working the subconscious. The trouble is it can't really ground you or get you into your body. It's a little in the head. It's great for physical and emotional healing, but it doesn't create confidence or presence. It doesn't really make you a lot of money.
Okay.
It can, but that's unusual.
Yeah.
And when we get into the third generation, that's what I learned from Carl Wolf. And the very short version of how I met him was after I learned from Terry to be a healer, I had kind of got my life back in order. I'd gotten up disability. I'd started making money. I started dating again.
Yeah.
And then it all blew up again. And I ended up being defrauded over $1 million and forced into bankruptcy. And it's no joke. It was November 2008. I declared bankruptcy on Monday. I met Carl on Tuesday. I had my first movement feedback holography session. And by Thursday night, I had made over $50,000.
Wow.
And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell just happened there? Right.
Right.
Because I had been to all these, money masterminds and positive thinking and, block clearings to wealth. I had done a lot of that stuff. None of it really moved the needle.
Right.
And then I did this movement thing. And basically, I met this crazy old guy who made me rollerblade in circles, videotape me, and then watch the video and criticize my energy. That was the process. And I went home upset. I'm like, dude, aren't you going to fix me? Right.
Yeah.
That was actually, the fixing happened so subtly, I didn't even notice it. Wow. And I started making money and sales and growing my business like I'd never seen before. And that's why part of why it took me 10, 12 years to figure the stuff out.
Sure.
I thought I had figured it out around 2008. Mm-hmm. Then I had this whole nother life-changing experience that introduced me to today, what we call the third generation consciousness technology, which, and if there's something that's 100%, this would be it.
Yeah.
It has a steep learning curve. It's weird. It's not something you're going to master in 30 minutes or an hour or even a weekend.
Right.
But it's about learning to inhabit your body and be present, and learning to decode your subconscious patterns through movement and meditation. Mm-hmm. And it's a very direct thing because it bypasses the mind. There's no language involved necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more of a feeling thing. And that's what really was the missing piece for me. And so that's Awakening Dynamics is sort of an amalgam of the most important things I've learned from a lot of different teachers. And in my system, I don't spend much time on the first gen tech, right? Go watch The Secret, you're good.
Sure, yeah.
What I teach is a very advanced and elegant second generation technology for getting into the subconscious as a bridge to the third gen. Because it is a little weird. It's harder to understand.
Yeah.
Anybody that studied non-duality knows it'll turn your brain inside out. It's very much like studying quantum physics.
Oh, really?
Yes, for sure. That anyone that thinks they understand it the first time, no, they're delusional. No one understands it. It's so weird.
Wow.
But this is the thing I'm really focused on now.
Yeah.
Why? There's a million places online you can get the first gen technology, right?
Yeah.
Go watch The Secret. Go Everything Can Grow Rich. Go join a mastermind. Go nuts, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath. Probably not going to make you rich. There's also now certainly post-COVID, a million places you can go online to find energy healers, right?
Yeah.
That work remotely, that know how to clear subconscious blocks, do NLP and things, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But there's really nobody out there doing what I'm doing with the third gen. That when my late mentor Carl passed away, it was about 5 years ago. I was the only person on the planet that he gave permission to carry on the work. So it has taken me literally 5 years to get confident enough to do what I'm doing, to write a book and go out and start talking about it. Because remember, it was 10 years just to warm up to learn it from him, right?
Right.
And another 5 years to get me to the point where I feel confident enough to write a book and go out and promote it. But we're there now. And, I want
Mm-hmm.
people to know that this is different. It's weird. We can look at your movement and look right into your soul. And it's a very physical process it's not exercise. So it's not about calories or sweating, right?
No, right.
You can do it if you're in a hospital bed, right? It's about learning to move and inhabit your body and how to relate to the space and world around you.
I got you.
And when we do that, it's
Mhm.
largely letting go and letting the space around us pick us up and carry us through life, which sounds weird. But when you're tuned into that field of consciousness, life is, even your body can move almost effortlessly. I call it the force field.
Yeah.
That when I really click in, it feels like something outside of me is holding me up. It's a visceral feeling. And that's what's happening your whole life. And so a lot of what I do is showing people how to get in through words, through the body, through muscle testing, through meditation,
Yeah.
to get in to clear these traumas and old scars and blocks and wounds, to simply be in your body connected to the space around you. Because here's a fun fact from science. Did you know that in 1 cubic centimeter of empty space, which is a little tiny bit, right? There is more what they call 0 point or quantum energy than the sun will produce in its entire lifetime.
Had no idea.
Yep. So if you're looking for the power, the energy you need to heal your body, to get out of pain, to find love, to make money, to grow your business, right? Whatever it is, it's right. There's more than enough right around you, wherever you are. All we got to do is learn to let go of the old thoughts and ideas, the beliefs, the pain, right?
Yeah.
And surrender into this presence. And just the tiniest fraction of that energy can do almost anything.
Yeah. Incredible.
Right.
Wow.
So can you make 50 grand in a week? Sure. Why not? Again, the
You're
sun
proof
for its whole
positive of it.
lifetime, right? The
Yeah,
sun for its
yeah.
whole lifetime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of money that can produce,
Amazing.
right? Imagine every
Yeah.
plant, every animal, every bit of oil pumped out of this earth all came from the sun.
Possibilities are endless.
Yep. It really is more than we could ever imagine. And my
Incredible.
goal is simple: to get you connected to your real self, to see through the mist, let go of the old pain, and surrender into the flow of life. I can't promise anyone that you'll necessarily be rich or happy, but you will be free. The freedom is virtually guaranteed. If you're willing to walk the path and do the work, you will find the freedom.
That's the appeal, I think.
Yes. And I think ultimately that's more valuable than anything else.
100%. 100%. Yep. It truly is. Love it.
Though I'll warn everyone, I'm not for everyone. I'm a little intense. I'm obsessed with the truth.
Yeah.
There's very little new agey stuff of, no bead curtains or Buddha statues or unnecessary hugs, right? I'm not opposed to that, but I'm about just the facts. Yeah. This is how the universe works. This is what you need to know. This is how you practice it. Go.
Brent, speaking of universe, I have a question for you that is more of an introspective question, if you don't mind my asking.
Yeah.
As a healer and coach, you've helped many different people from all around the world. And do you feel that as a healer and a coach that you have, or one must have, some sort of intangible, universal superpower or attribute to connect with people from so many different walks of life?
What I have found is everybody has that ability.
Okay.
Most people just don't know it is even there at all. And like any ability, some people have more of it naturally than others.
Right.
But, it's the same whether it's energy healing, intuition, or even if, let's say, you want to be a baseball player.
Yeah.
That there are some people that have more natural talent than others.
Right.
But over the long run, what really levels the field is, are you going to work at it? Are you dedicated? Are you in it for the long run?
Right. Your commitment.
Right. If you're really a talented athlete, you can probably make the high school team pretty easily.
Yeah.
But will you make the college team? I don't know.
Right.
Will you make the minors? Maybe. But no one ever makes it to the major leagues just on talent.
No.
You're lucky if that just gets you in the door.
Yeah.
And so
right.
I would say, if anything, I had the opposite. I had the lack of a gift. That when I started this, I was the worst of the worst. that the first class I took with Terry right after that first miracle in 2003, there was almost 100 students there. I was dead last by a long way, right? If it was a marathon, I'm the guy that walks across the finish line 3 days later after everyone went home, right? And it's because I was so stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
From all the years in science and engineering at MIT. So what I'll offer to everyone is I guarantee to all of my students and clients that you will be further along in terms of ability than I am if you put in the same amount of time, energy, dedication.
Got it.
That I haven't found anyone that was in a worse place starting off than I was.
Gotcha.
And my goal is to give you a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Why did I go to MIT? I didn't want to have to go figure all this stuff out on my own. Would have taken lifetimes, right? You go to a place where other people have figured it out. They put it in books and classes, and you cram it all into your head in 4 years.
Right.
Now you can go be an engineer, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. It's like, if you guys want to spend 20 years and $1 million running around to different teachers, great. Go crazy. Have fun, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want the shortcut, come to me. Like, here's how you do it. This is what you need to know, right? This is how it works.
Yep. I mean,
though I'll warn you. I will spoil people because a lot of my students go on to other things and come back. They're like, Brent, why is it so slow paced? Right? Why are things not working? I'm like, it's not their fault. It's just, it isn't this, right? Because again, I'm about what works.
Yes.
Engineers, results, right?
Yep. That's right.
Yep. And so am I open to the new agey stuff? Of course. Right? I teach people intuition. I teach people how to channel their guardian angels and talk to the higher self and all these things. But only because it works.
Yeah.
Right? It's that simple. It works.
It works. And I have
Do we fully understand it? No. But it works.
and that's the part you have to surrender to, right? I mean, with the scientific background and I mean, an immense engineering experience, that is tough to let go of.
Yeah.
Just believe it works and not truly know how, but you've not only surrendered to believe that, but you've also embraced it. And I have to commend you for the open-mindedness that
it's thank you. It's really the only way to survive it.
Yeah.
In the Marines, they have a saying, embrace the suck.
Yes.
If you can't embrace the suck, you will either get yourself killed or literally go crazy.
Yes.
It's not a joke, right?
Yeah. No, it's
but
not.
If you can learn to love the early mornings, the pain, and take pride in it, then you can actually turn it to your advantage.
100%.
So yeah, I had to surrender. I had to learn to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
The darkness, the pain, what in Jungian psychology they call the shadow. So the advanced work does have a lot to do with integrating your own shadow. And it does. That's why I say it's not for the faint of heart. You got to be willing to drive straight into the darkness. But that's not day one. Right? I remember when I was at MIT, when I was a freshman, I looked at some of the problem sets and tests from the upper division classes, and I freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, this looks so hard.
Yeah.
I could never understand this, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't by
the time. But yeah, that was day one.
Yeah.
By the time 2-3 years later, I was in those classes. It was tough, but I could handle it.
Yes.
So I'll say people on the spiritual journey, it's the same. Yes, there's some really tough stuff you'll have to do. But when you're there, you will be ready for it.
Love it.
Anyone who's been married or had a child knows that, right? No one's really fully ready to have a child, right? I don't care how many books you've read, right?
Yeah. And there's no perfect time.
Yeah, there's no perfect
time.
Anything. Yep. And it's tough.
Just do it. Yeah.
It's tough to be a parent. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But many people look back and would say it's the most fulfilling and important thing they've ever done.
Amen.
And that's 100%. How I feel about the spiritual work too, right? Does it have its tough moments? Yes. But that's why you have guides and teachers to make it easier.
Exactly.
And
I couldn't agree more.
That's why I'm here.
Brent. And your guarantee is a reasonable guarantee. And I just want the listeners to know, again, putting in the effort, just allowing yourself to have an open mind and just know that there's freedom on the other side of what Brent can teach and guide you through. That is a tremendous and reasonable guarantee. All you have to do is put in the effort.
Yep.
Brent, how can the listeners follow you, learn more about you, learn more about your great work, and maybe even connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing everyone should do right now, go bring up awakeningdynamics.com on your browser.
Okay.
That's my website. So awakeningdynamics.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's got all sorts of information, link to contact me if you're interested in sessions, classes. But the one things I want to call out is there's a big arrow right at the top. Get registered for my live Healathon webinar. I do them several times a year. I have one coming up very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important because it's a format where I'm going to guide you through a lot of interactive processes. There's some discussion of what we call the 7 tools of higher dimensional living. But I don't want you to just hear about this. I want you to start to experience it.
Beautiful.
And so the Healathon is great because the live webinar allows me to be there with you, guide you through the processes, answer your questions, and I even do free healings. So that's the most important thing, to kind of get to know me more, to really try this for yourself, see what you think. Because again, I'm not for everyone, right? Not at all. But for those that it's a good fit, it's life-changing. So get registered for the Healathon. It's totally free. And after you get registered there, there's a link to my YouTube channel. So I got, at the time we're recording this, I think 77 different videos, plus a lot of shorts. So lots of great content on different topics. And there's also on my website, you'll find there's the Spiritual Power Quiz. And for everybody that wants to get started right away, there's a big link you'll see called Podcast Special for the Road for Rediscovery. So if you want to get in touch with me personally to go deep, that's what that's for. So you can click the link. There'll be a little form. And for those that really want to learn more, we'll get back to you. But I would love for everyone, check it out, get to the Healathon, watch the YouTube channel, see if this is for you.
We'll have all that information in the episode show notes. Just want the listeners to know you can click the link from the show notes when this episode is released. You can enroll for the Healathon, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and get connected with awakeningdynamics.com. We'll have that web address in the episode show notes. Brent Phillips, I can't thank you so much for coming on to the show. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and the uniqueness of your applied methods in helping people heal. Thank you for sharing that insights with us.
Oh, it's been great. I hope we reach some people and change some lives. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. I know we have, you have shared insights that have resonated with listeners. So really, let's keep in touch. I'd love to have you back on the show at a future date.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you have a loved one, a neighbor, a coworker, a colleague, someone who just doesn't see themselves these days, maybe they're going through dark days of despair, not quite knowing where to turn or who to turn to. I humbly ask that you please share the show with them, because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know 2 things. 1, you're not alone. And 2, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.